Good afternoon, and welcome to the Richmond Redevelopment Commission meeting of Tuesday, March the 12th, 2024. We will begin the meeting today by swearing in members of our commission by our mayor, Mayor Ron Oler.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You have in front of you your oath of office, so if you don't mind, raise your right hand, and I will read all of this, and you can say I confirm at the end. You don't have to repeat me verbatim if you don't want to. I do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Indiana and the ordinances of the city of Richmond, Indiana, and that I will faithfully and conscientiously discharge my duties as a member of the Redevelopment Commission for the city of Richmond according to law and the best of my ability.
I do.
I affirm.
You affirm? Thank you.
Yes.
So sign both of those, and then we'll collect the originals and carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate the appointment, and we appreciate the trust that you have in us for the role that we have for the city.
And I'll sit and watch the meeting for a minute.
Sure.
I'll leave this here.
Thank you.
Now it's legal, now you have to get to work.
Yes, we do. Now that we have our commission sworn in, I want to call the meeting to order. Would you call the roll, please, Beth?
Michael Bloom.
Here.
Jenny Lahman. Here. Kathy Lucid.
Here.
Kim Pickering.
Here.
Allison Seidel.
Here.
5 are present.
Thank you very much. We have a quorum and can proceed. The first order of business that we have today, which is something that we do at the first meeting of every calendar year, is the election of officers for the year. And I know it's March, but this is the first time that we've met this year, so that we do have that as an agenda item to begin. So the first order of business is to elect a president for the upcoming year. Are there any motions?
I'd like to nominate Kathy Lucid as the president.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to nominate me as president for this upcoming year. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next office that we have to consider is the office of vice president. Do I hear any motions? And Gary is our current vice president.
Can we nominate him even though he's not here? 'Cause
I think that's perfectly
I
acceptable.
think I will nominate Gary then for
All
the
right.
office of VP.
We have a motion for Gary Turner to be vice president. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
I think we should make him a list now, since he's not here.
Yes,
There's all the things you were assigned,
yes, exactly.
now that you're VP again.
And the next and final office that we have is the office of secretary. Allison is our current secretary.
I nominate Allison Seidel as our secretary.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to nominate Allison to role of secretary. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
I'm not allowed to vote, am I?
No.
Am I allowed to vote?
Sure,
Do
you
we
can
abstain
vote for
from our
yourself.
own votes or not?
No, you can vote for yourself.
Okay, I'll go aye.
All right,
I'll go aye.
excellent. All approved. The next order of business on our agenda is a review of the minutes, but Beth, I understand the minutes are not quite ready yet.
No, they are not. We are trying to locate the transcript from those minutes on the system. So we're working with IT to locate those.
Then we will move to the financials. And you had in your package financial reports for December and for year ending, or a month ending January. But if I can, I'm going to backtrack for just one moment because we have a new member up here who is representing the education side. Kim Pickering has joined us.
Yes.
And will be with us this year as representative. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the financials, Beth.
Sure. So looking at December year end, a couple of things to note. Our revenue came in 9% over what we had projected for 2023. So that equated to a little over $341,000 in additional revenue that we received in 2023. And you'll see, if you'll recall on previous financials, there was a credit to our account that should have been credited to the airport. And so you'll see in the December financials that $1,000 was taken back out of our account to credit back to the proper fund for that. I think looking forward into January, as we look at our January position, our revenue this year, our projected revenue is up 10%. We're projecting 10% more in revenue in the calendar year of 2024 for our allocation area number 1. So you will see that reflected in what we're expecting to receive the first allocation on June 30th, and then that second allocation comes on December 31st. So as we look through the projects that we continue to have ongoing, some of those line items that we have at the beginning, those are our housekeeping items, our contractual services with Baker Tilly for their assistance running financial protections for bond issues, for doing our TIF neutralization at the county, for assisting with reporting work that we do, as well as contractual services with ICE Miller for our bond issuance. So that is a continuation of our bond work that we are doing with Flaherty and Collins for the 6th and Main project for new apartments. Intergovernmental services, that is the amount that finance charges each fund other than the general fund of the city for services that are provided by other departments to the commission. So that would be for portions of my salary for the work, portions of the law department, the finance department, all of those other ancillary funds that assist with the work that we do. Loop Phase 2, which the funding for that was approved in 2017 by the commission. The planning efforts for design actually started, as you'll recall, it's been a while. NDOT projects take a while. So in 2019, we had meetings with the downtown businesses, with the depot businesses specifically to talk about what their desires were for the design of that. We were on the heels of finishing Phase 1, so we wanted to understand what did they want different in Phase 2, what did that look like. So we had a series of public input meetings with those groups as well as the general public invited to attend in 2019. And then in 2021, after the designs were completed, then those groups were brought back in for another series of meetings so that they had an opportunity to comment on those final designs, request any potential changes or modifications. There were some slight modifications made in those 2021 documents. The project was originally scheduled to be constructed in 2023, but due to COVID, NDOT was a little bit behind on some of their projects, and they asked that that be pushed to the 2024 construction season. We did agree to that change. So that project is scheduled, NDOT has an official start date of April 1st for Loop Phase 2. There is some work being done prior to that for the removal of the trees. Because of the brown bat mating season, all trees have to be removed before April 1st. And with the contract period not starting till April 1st, there had to be some modifications made and approval by NDOT to allow them to do that work prior to April 1st. They will then be officially starting work We requested a moratorium during the eclipse process, and Milestone, who is the contractor, has graciously agreed to that. So the work on the project won't actually start until Tuesday, April the 9th. That project will start on East Main Street in the 700 block. And we are anticipating additional information. We are working with the Main Street organization, who is the liaison to all of the businesses downtown, as well as the Depot District Association as the liaison to all of the businesses in the Depot District, and the Chamber of Commerce and Wayne County Tourism to share the information out, and then they share that information on scheduling and upcoming activities with their constituencies.
How long do we expect those road closures to happen?
The project is technically scheduled for 2 seasons, this year and next year, but the way the schedule is currently, they're trying to get that completed in 1 construction season. So at this time, we don't have, it's all weather permitting and scheduling for subs and acquiring materials dependent on what that actual schedule is. So we do not have data on the exact time of those closures.
That'll all be shared with the public when it's available.
When it's available, yes. And part of the thing with NDOT projects is that the contract is between NDOT and Milestone. The city is not a party to those contracts, and all local public agency contracts for construction are given a set number of days to complete the work, and the contractor gets to decide the means, method, and timeline for that work. That road basically belongs to that contractor from day one, which is April 1st, until the end of the project. So as a courtesy, they do include us in updates and providing additional information to us that we can share out to the public. But with that schedule changing on a daily and weekly basis, they're unable to provide a lot of detail early in the process.
Is Greg, I'm assuming then Richmond projects, since this is an NDOT project, Richmond projects through Greg will be not necessarily going on at the same time. I mean,
The only other projects that would be going on would be community crossings projects and
Okay.
local street projects that the street department would be undertaking.
Yeah.
Other work that would be occurring through town that is outside of our purview would be utility work, as they're replacing the lead lines by Indiana American Water. That work is happening in a variety of locations. CenterPoint is doing some upgrades to gas lines, as well as Verizon doing work as well. So there's a lot of utility work that's occurring throughout. If that doesn't require a street closure that has to go through the Board of Public Works and Safety, we're not typically notified of those work locations.
okay.
So that was a lot for Loop Phase 2.
Yes. Well, it's a big project.
We'll move on. So it's one of those where it originated in the 2006 comprehensive plan, and here we are in '24 finally finishing it. I mean, it's Phase 2, but it's transportation projects generally have quite a lengthy life cycle to get through that process. The former hospital, we continue to stay in touch with the consultant for the hospital on getting the environmental restrictive covenants placed on that land. They have a remedial work plan that they have provided to IDEM that is being implemented. So once that's implemented, then they'll meet with IDEM again to see if they can agree that that work has been satisfactorily completed, and then environmental restrictive covenants will be placed on the property. Once those are placed on the property, then the funds that Reed has committed to the project will come back to the commission.
Any idea on a date on that? I know we've been tracking this for a long time.
Yes, unfortunately, we don't have a date on that. It's one of those where there's a lot of back and forth between IDEM and the hospital in the work that needs to be done and doing the work. So kind of definitely outside of our control. With the PLACE program, we'll be working with Richmond Neighborhood Restoration. They're going to be the official recipient from Revitalize Richmond's grant funding that they're receiving. So there will be multiple locations that will be part of the PLACE program. And the former Reedmore will be one that they will be taking into their portfolio and working through that process.
Excellent.
The other locations are yet to be identified. They're still working through that process.
And have they supplied us with a timeline?
No, there is no timeline for that yet. The Farmers Market Master Plan, they are wrapping that up, and they're expected to have their final invoice soon because the plan has been completed. The former Mechanics Laundry, we are almost ready to put out bids for the demolition of that building. The environmental restrictive covenants have been tentatively approved by IDEM, so we're waiting for official approval. Once those are officially approved, there will be one final invoice that will be paid by the previous owners of Mechanics Laundry for all of that remediation work that has been done there. And once that invoice is paid, then we will receive a no further action document from IDEM for that site.
Can you remind me where the site is? I know it's just been a long time.
It is adjacent to the Depot building on Northeast Street.
Oh, right.
10th and
What, on the
Yep.
east side of it?
Yep. Okay, thanks.
yes.
When that
And
comes
then-
down, that will be a paved parking area.
Yes, then that will become a paved parking lot for the area. Greg has a consultant that is ramping up to start those community meetings to discuss what that will look like. They'll be doing that in conjunction with what the plaza will look like under the new Renew I-70 bridge.
Yeah. Okay.
And by paving that, I mean, that seals off any other environmental concerns, correct?
The repayment of that remediation, is that,
That's on the previous owner.
yeah, I know, is that going to happen? I mean, is there realistically expect that to be done?
That's
Or do you
already,
think
they've
that-
already paid for, they hired the consultant and paid the consultant directly
so
for that work.
it's
But
been-
yes, all of the
all
ground,
remediation's been paid
all of the
for?
groundwater remediation has been completed.
Okay, I thought you said they were waiting for that.
Well,
reimbursement.
there is a fee from IDEM for approving environmental restrictive covenants. So you want a no further action letter. So in order to get that no further action letter from IDEM, you have to make that final payment to them.
What are we talking about, $500 or 10,000 or, I mean, I don't,
I don't know. We have not seen any of those bills since they were not our responsibility, since that was the responsibility of the former owner. So we have not seen any of those bills for the remediation work or the work that the attorneys have done on behalf of the previous owner.
I was just curious, thank you.
The building currently has a mural as well, does it not? Was there some discussion early on about attempting to save that mural or recreate it somewhere else in the district?
So there will be high-quality images taken of that mural. When we bid it out, we will do an alternate to save the mural. And then if there is an entity that wants to pay the additional amount to save the mural and relocate it, then that will be an opportunity.
Thank you.
The 1200 block continue working with developers as they look at potential new development in that area. The airport is continuing to work on acquiring additional equipment for the airport. Community Crossings matching grant, that should be closing out shortly. They are finishing that and awaiting final invoices to close that.
We're showing that as closed, is that?
The Community Crossings?
Yes.
It has a yes in
It
there.
has a yes on closed.
Oh, sorry. The work has been completed, but the
The billing process.
Correct. The billing process
Should
is
we
not
change that to
complete.
no so that we don't
Yes, my
try to
apologies.
reallocate that? Okay.
Unsafe and blighted structures, that is the remainder of the funding that we allocated to code enforcement and their unsafe building demolition process. So that is additional funding that they have not tapped into yet. Gorge activation, that is the match for the Land and Water Conservation Fund for gorge activation, and they have not gotten to the point yet where they're drawing on that. Same with Project Thomas. That is the transloading facility adjacent to Blue Buffalo in the Midwest Industrial Park. That, if you've been by there lately, that is going very well and is completing very quickly. So we would
Shiny new silo.
a lot of shiny new silos. Yes,
Yesterday.
absolutely. So we are expecting an invoice from the Economic Development Corporation at the conclusion of that work.
It'll just be one big invoice for that one.
Yes. Park equipment, that was the additional equipment that the park had requested for their work, as well as the additional funding that was provided for the Dream Court. So that repair at the Dream Court has been completed, but again, we're still awaiting additional invoicing to close that
Did the
out.
park equipment, did they actually acquire the piece of equipment?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just waiting on invoicing.
Yes. As well as with the bond payments, we have Series A, which is the legacy TIF payment. So the initial payment has been made in January for that bond. So we have the remaining amount there. The Series B payment for Carpenter doesn't come out until February, so we don't see that here yet. The Midwest Industrial Park expansion bond, that payment has been made, but it has not yet transferred out of our fund. So that transfer will be coming. So as you see, this amount is a little higher. The final payment in 2023 was not transferred, so that transfer will occur. So that's why I've got the note there that it includes one 2023 payment. So that gives us total obligations of $3,775,998.84. The total amount that we have earmarked for Richmond Community Schools capital projects, they had a remaining balance of $303,000 in 2023. So the $250,000 that's committed annually by the commission to the school board for those projects is added to that. So that gives us $553,000 committed to the school. So the total that we have available for new projects is $6,393,585.05. That, as you'll see, we do not have an earmark amount yet for the funding that will be committed to the Flaherty and Collins apartment complex at 6th and Main.
When will that earmark show up, Beth?
That should be coming shortly. We did last week just sign the development agreement with the developer. So they are working with their architects to get that process started on their side. So with that, we are now working on the loan documents because the funding that will come from the Redevelopment Commission will be a forgivable loan. It will have clawbacks included in that. So the negotiation now is beginning for what those clawbacks and what that looks like.
Kim, I just wanted to point out that allocation for Richmond Community Schools. I'm not sure if you're aware that we
I
do
am, yes,
put a
yeah.
piece aside for projects that you identify.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So looking at the Certified Technology Park, when we look at the Certified Technology Park, we've had some changes. We were leasing the building that is owned by the commission to Wolverine. They have moved to a remote situation for their employees and no longer had need of that building. So in working with them on the termination of their lease, there was an agreement that the termination of that lease would result in $83,500 coming to the commission. And then we have a new lease in place with Vandor, who is taking over use of that building. Their lease payment will be $14,850 per month. So our overall revenue in the certified tech park, the only revenue that we receive is the rent from that building, and that will be up 35% over previous years. So we will have some additional funding. As a 1 year, because of the 1 year injection of funds from the termination of the Wolverine lease, our income in 2024 will be up 53% in that fund.
Very good.
And that's a triple net lease.
Correct.
Oh, what's a triple net lease? I'm
They
sorry.
pay all the expenses, insurance,
Oh, okay.
and all that.
Thank you.
All that, taxes. And
Okay.
So in other words, our only cost is essentially zero.
Okay,
So
great.
I don't know,
Yes.
on a new roof or something like that, I'm not sure.
There's some provisions in the lease that they would do that work, and then there's also a negotiated acquisition price in there, should they determine that they'd like to acquire the property. So any work like that can be approved by the EDC and then can be deducted from their acquisition price.
It's a good arrangement. for
It
them.
is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's great. It's worked out great.
Yeah.
So I think with the provisions that we have, we did put money in the budget for taxes, not knowing, we knew last year that Wolverine would not be continuing. They had already told us that they would be vacating the property in June at the latest, and had hoped to vacate earlier than that. So we did put some money in for taxes in case we would have that expense. But fortunately, we will not.
It worked out well.
Yes. Johns Manville. We have the bond payment for Johns Manville comes directly out of their fund. It does not get transferred from allocation area 1. This is a bond that is supported specifically by their allocation area. So you'll see that initial payment was made in January, and we have that remaining 50% of that left. Same with the community crossings in this fund, because we had some roads that serve and benefit the Johns Manville TIF area. A portion of that cost was allocated to this fund. So again, once those final invoices are paid, then we will see that project close out on this fund as well. The sidewalk work, Greg is continuing to work to get all of the sidewalk work that is being funded by the Johns Manville TIF area completed, as well as there was some additional funding for the Dream Court from this fund as well.
What was the total on the Dream?
Yeah, I'm confused about the Dream Court.
Do I have it in both places?
on the-
Yeah,
both.
it's
It's
in
on
both
the other
places.
one.
Is it 20 grand total or
It's
40?
20 grand total.
Okay.
Okay.
20,000.
So I will look back and see, it may have inadvertently got placed here. So
Because
I
the
will,
crossing is separate. It's on
correct.
top of
Right.
it, right.
Yes.
Right. So do you think it belongs in the Johns Manville?
No. Yes, I think it belongs in Johns
Okay.
Manville and not in allocation area number
Okay.
1.
Okay.
All right, so
So I will confirm that. I was not here when that was approved, but I will confirm that on the resolution. So there's also capital set aside for Richmond Community Schools in this fund in the amount of $50,000 a year. So there was a $50,000 balance at the end of '23. So we have $100,000 available in the Johns Manville Fund for Richmond Community Schools, leaving us with an available balance of $1,150,475.08 for new projects. So as you'll recall, we have been working to start planning for that 5th Street corridor and renovations to the 5th Street corridor. And so we're working to have acquire funding that would allow us to do a detailed corridor study all the way from I-70 to US 40. It would look at all of the things that we would need to do to upgrade that corridor. So there will be a lot of pieces that go into that, a lot of utility work, burying of utilities, a variety of different. Beautification would be part of that. Sidewalks would be part of that. So that will be a large undertaking. It will probably be a 15 or 20-year project in order to complete all of the phases of that would need to be done, just mainly from a funding standpoint. The most recent funding applications for NDOT were funding projects in 2029. So if we were to apply this year, then 2030 would be our initial year of funding.
Takes a long time, doesn't it?
We plan on,
Does
we
take a
plan
long-
on putting the application in this year? Okay.
So that is our hope. With the Heartland Fund, this fund is simply dedicated to that TIF allocation area. And again, this is another self-performing TIF where their bond payments are made based on the tax payments that they make. So they either can pay that off early if they're making additional payments, or if they miss a payment or aren't able to make a full payment, then that bond payment to the trustee is just reduced. For that.
Very good. Any additional comments on the financials, Beth? Any questions on the financials? We have the December and the January, I believe, that would require separate motions for approval. So let's deal with the first one, the financials for December 31st, 2023. Do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve, but I want to make sure that the Dream Court's on that one, so we need
Yes.
to approve it with that amendment. I don't remember how we document that, but I'll make a motion to approve it with that amendment.
Okay. Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the December 31st, 2023 financials with an amendment associated with moving the Dream Court allocation into the Johns Manville.
Mike Bloom,
Aye.
Jenny Lahman,
Aye.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Kim Pickering. Oh, I'm sorry. I just get used to going down the list. Allison Zeidel.
Aye.
All are in favor.
Ayes have it, so financials are approved. Next is the financial statement that Beth just went through, which is as of January 31st, 2024. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion, but the same thing, to have that Dream Court corrected.
Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the financials of January 31st, 2024, with, again, the amendment to move the $20,000 to the Johns Manville. Would you call the roll, please?
Mike Bloom,
Aye.
Jenny Lahman,
Aye.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Allison Zeidel.
Aye.
All are in favor.
All in favor? Motion passes. The financials are approved. We do not have any resolutions before the commission this month. Do we have any additional items, Beth, that you want to talk about in terms of future projects?
The only other thing, not necessarily future projects, but determining if the commission wants to continue with this meeting time slot for the rest of the year, or if there is a desire to change the meeting time and date.
Works great for me. I don't know.
Pleasure of the commission. I think we all kind of have it baked into our schedules
Yeah.
It's
now.
been here for
Yeah.
so long.
Yeah,
Probably make matters worse
work
if we
for you?
change.
I think so. I think so. So we will continue with the meeting time as we have it.
Okay. Second Tuesday of the month at noon. I think the only other document that will be coming forward for approval will be to support the first responders salaries for their time spent within the TIF allocation area. So a calculation has been done to determine the amount that would reimburse for first responders for their time working in the allocation area. And that allocates to just under $500,000 for a single year. Last year in July, a new law went into effect that allows redevelopment commissions, should they so choose, to assist in the funding of first responders within their allocation areas.
Interesting. Now, how was that calculated? Is that a factor or actual hours being recorded?
It was calculated by the amount of time spent within the district and the number of officers and an amount per officer.
Okay, so actual.
Station in the district? Like, is there a?
The only actual station would be here at the city building, but they all have zones that they work in and time that they're allocated to those.
I have no problem with that idea. I like the idea. I can see there being ways to manipulate those numbers, and how do we audit those numbers to know that they were within the district?
Yeah, that was my
I know this
concern
is a
about whether or
public
not.
meeting, and I
factor it.
want it clear, I'm for this. I think that's fine, but
Yeah, we will
sounds pretty
provide that
loosey-goosey. I
data.
think we need to have a good, strong audit trail that,
Mm-hmm.
we can say, yes, indeed.
Yeah,
Car
and
1, 2, 3 was supposed to be where it was instead of.
yeah, and this would be
else.
based on the previous year. So if you do approve this, funding goes to support, it would be based on 2023 data.
Okay. And as
you're
we go
comfortable with
forward,
the
that would
model
be,
that they're using to calculate this dollar.
Yeah, and we'll share that with everyone as well.
Yeah, if someone could explain the methodology and the
Yeah.
assumptions and all that kind of stuff, I'd like to hear that if you
Yep.
would.
Absolutely.
I agree, Mike.
Yeah, and before that can come to the commission, there's documentation that ICE Miller has to create to amend our redevelopment plan of work. So since this
Or
is
to
not.
include it.
Yes, to include this, because this is something that we have never included in our plan of work because it wasn't legal to include it. So now that it is eligible to be included, ICE Miller is working on providing that documentation so that we can bring that to the commission. There's a public hearing that goes with that as well.
Okay. When do you expect that?
Probably in May.
Okay. Very good. And did you indicate earlier that we're going to be receiving a new handbook as well?
Yes, there will be a new handbook for the Redevelopment Commission that will be coming out shortly.
It will include all the latest
Yes.
statutes.
Yes, it'll have an area in the back where it just highlights the things that have changed from the previous year.
Excellent. Any additional new business to come before the commission today?
I have a read more question. So you said Richmond Neighborhood Restoration is going to be taking over that project. That's, to me, almost an example of how not to have done that. It seems it went badly and was delayed and promises made and not followed. Is there anything we learned from that project of how not to do a project? Because it seems that's one of those things that everybody seems to ask questions about. Oh my gosh, there's the read more again, and people ask and ask me. I don't know about that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, we hear it all.
You know, and it's been now with neighborhood restoration. I feel very comfortable, and I think things will get done. But it's
too.
been done. I mean, what's occurred prior badly
Yeah, a lot of
executed. I
the
don't know what the word is. But
Yeah,
is
a
it-
A
but
lot
what-
of
what-
money involved,
What did
too.
we?
Yeah,
What did we
yeah.
learn, and what could we have done differently in hindsight to have made this work more smoothly?
And how do we go
Yeah.
forward and do it better?
Yeah.
yeah,
Any
absolutely.
comments?
Yeah, I think-
Thoughts? Or, I mean, I don't want to throw you on.
Oh,
if
no,
you wanna
you're
think about
totally
it, get
fine.
back.
Oh, no, totally. So I think part of the challenge that we had was a lot of the initial work that was done and that was costly was doing the planning and the planning documents. So a lot of our money was spent with LWC in doing professional renderings, engineering drawings, concept pieces, putting that together. And then the next step we had to do immediately was we had to get the roof secured so that we would ensure that we had a good secure roof for as we moved forward. And then it was moving on to the interior remediation. So the remediation of the building. So there was a time period where there was work done on the remediation of the building. And then after that, next was the demolition phase. So then working through the demolition phase. And then the estimate to complete the work was very different than the initial bids that came in to do the work. So then in working with LWC, as we looked at how we move forward, the decision was made to do the pieces that we had funding for and to do it rather than as a single bid for the entire thing, to do that in pieces, hoping that the market would change, that the cost of materials would change, that there could potentially be a change in the cost of labor. That didn't happen. Obviously, in hindsight, we should have simply just come back to the board and said, hey, we need an extra $1 million to do this. So I think that was the biggest lesson learned, was that don't try to do it on the cheap necessarily, I guess, more so, just
Or
go
hoping
ahead.
against hope that prices
Right,
change.
that things will change. I mean, that's what we've seen with other developments that have been going on as well. There are a couple of developers that have projects that are on hold. They're waiting, hoping that that environment changes. So
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
it may or may not change. We don't have control over that. At the time, indications were that that situation was going to get better, and it didn't. So
And granted, it was a difficult time. I mean,
right.
So
COVID
Right.
was in there.
So absolutely acknowledge that didn't work out the way it was intended to,
as
and
long as we
yeah,
mental notes and
Oh,
remember
absolutely.
next time that let's
absolutely.
just bite the bullets, proverbial bullets. And
I think Mike makes a good point in that all of us receive questions about what's happening with that building. We talked about this earlier with R&R, and I asked whether or not there was a schedule. Could we ask R&R for a schedule specific to that building? Because it is so highly visible in the community, and we do get a lot of questions. I think we'd like to see what their timetable looks like.
And is there
Yeah.
an actual plan for that building now? Have they made a decision on what it's going to be? I guess I don't even know that.
So the building goes into the PLACE program, which is operated by the Revolving Loan Fund. So entrepreneurs will be able to come and make a pitch for utilizing that building.
Okay.
So for the first 5 years, they receive a discounted lease price, and then at the end of 5 years, then they're able to acquire that building. The revenue that will be generated from the apartments on the upper floors comes back to the commission and the revolving loan fund for future projects. When the entrepreneur acquires the building after 5 years, then that future revenue becomes the entrepreneur's. But the cost to renovate these buildings, for example, we were I don't want to misquote it. I think it was close to $1 million on the 720, 724 East Main for that building. So for an entrepreneur starting a business, that is not attainable. They're not able to go to the bank and get a loan to do that. So by partnering and doing that renovation and that rehabilitation and then offering it to those new businesses, and it also helps them get started. They will not be cannibalizing from other areas. I mean, it will be a new business new to that area. So it won't be that somebody down the street's like, hey, here's a shiny new building. Let me go take advantage of that. That will be considered through the application process.
being kind to the neighbors.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
and they have to go through small business training. Someone will assist them. There will be quarterly reporting where they'll be reporting how they're doing, meeting regularly with their coach during that 5-year period to ensure that if they need to make a course correction or if they're doing exceedingly better than they thought, is it time to calculate and maybe they want to buy out early. So those are all parts of that program.
Kim, our initial intention with that was to basically white box it. So get the building stabilized, get it up to code, white box it so that it does become an attractive building for an entrepreneur down the road.
Yeah. So fortunately, with Earlham's opportunity for the college and community collaboration and their success in receiving that $25 million and their selection of partnering with R&R to do these projects that would go into the PLACE program, that is the more natural fit for the direction of that program.
Is R&R their project on 23rd and Main? That's not finished yet, is it? Aren't they? Is that?
I don't know. I know they have multiple projects that they're working on.
Okay, I was wondering if they needed to finish up anything before they could start on the Reedmore building.
I don't know. I know that we're still working with Earlham on understanding what all of those parameters, what the reporting guidelines will be from Lilly as we report back these projects. So I'm not sure that there's necessarily a green light yet from Earlham to go full steam ahead with these projects.
R&R seems to be an excellent choice for us. They have that expertise, they have the connections with the people that are going to be doing the work and the architecture, and they just, it's
And
their
they have a
area of
good track
expertise.
record.
And they have they have an excellent track record. And it seems like they get those projects done like pretty quickly. It doesn't seem to be a lot of roadblocks there for them.
They focus.
They do, yeah. Yeah.
Very good. Good question, Mike. Any other business to come before the commission today? Hearing no other business, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks.